Pray for me, Damien. You're free.
What happened was there was no exorcism in the first original script. You know, it didn't happen. And toward the end of the shoot, I mean, there were big arguments, loud verbal arguments that I could hear that were going on over in the production office. I think between Joe Roth and who was the head of the studio then at that time, and Bill, about, you know, we're going to have this at the end and this exorcism. Because I think at some point when they changed the title from Legion to Exorcist 3, then suddenly they wanted to live up to the heritage of the original Exorcist, and it has to have an exorcism and a possession, and it has to have all this physicality of this visual presence of evil and what have demonication and all these things. And that came to a head, and I think he thought he could always hold that off. But the pressures to go in that direction were building even before we finished shooting. We finished the shoot. I think it took me 10 days or something beyond the end of the shoot to finish the cut. You know, you never cut as fast as they can shoot. It's impossible. And I showed him the cut, and I knew during the screening of the cut, because I at that point worked for enough directors and done enough films, that this would probably be the last time I was going to be sitting in a room with Bill Blatty. He wasn't, you know, digging it the way I thought he should. I think they went through this long process of trying to get a cut that was commercial, and then finally they decided, you got to go back and reshoot, and you're going to have to give us an exorcism, and you're going to have to bring back the character, the actor, I forgot from the first one, that they wanted to have come back in. That was always an issue all the way through the shooting. And then probably Tom Noel was brought in, uncredited, to do the final assembly on the end of the film there.
It was, what, 27, 28 years ago, I got a call from David Nixay, I believe it was, who was working for Morgan Creek. Nixay said, well, Mr. Blatty made his film and we're not happy with it. And so we'd like you to come and watch the film in its entirety. And oh, by the way, Peter Szyszewski, a cameraman, cinematographer, is going to watch it with you. And so we went over to Fox, I think it was, and we sat in the back to get the full view of the screen and what was going on. And we watched it, and at the end, Peter and I just kind of looked at one another like that. And it was totally leaden and pretty much without redemption. And then I happened to meet Mr. Blatty, and he seemed to think that he had created something very special and a masterpiece.
I think the thing that Bill wanted, and it always became a bit of his stumbling block, was he wanted to have the control over filmmaking that we had over writing a novel. And in writing a novel, I mean, you're the set decorator, you're the costumer, you're everything, and you're all the characters, you know. So you can get everything precisely the way you want it. There's a flexibility that a good director needs to have, I think, with regards to that.
There was that dichotomy between Morgan Creek, what they wanted, and what Mr. Blatty wanted. Mr. Blatty had final cut, which is certainly a problem.
And I don't think Bill's is the best collaborative mindset that one could ask for in a director. This is not in any way diminish his abilities or skills or talents or anything else. I'm just saying there's a personality that's more suited to being a director than let's say, being a novelist, or vice versa.
I think my official title was production manager.
This is what happens when there's an agreement at the outset about what kind of film you're going to make, which I don't think there was here. I think there was very much a shifting terrain.
But they wrote a lot of material, and they wrote a big special effects unit, and they wrote other scenes that took place, and so we were on 2 or 3 different stages. And Peter Szyszewski was going to shoot the scenes, you know, in the cell and what have you. And this cameraman, Jacek Laskas, was going to shoot the special effects. That was a bad piece of casting, because Jacek Laskas knew very little about special effects. And Peter Szyszewski was the cameraman on the second Star Wars movie, so he was pretty hip to it. But, you know, we did what we were told and where we were sent. So the special effects unit was full of problems. I mean, full of problems. And nothing was working, and this and that and the other thing. And then you had rain and snakes and, you know, stages falling away and lightning and not just snakes, but cobras. So if you want to feel creepy, just hang out around these cobras with fire and stuff and look at them for a while, and that's pretty creepy stuff. So then on top of that, you have Greg Cannon's creations, all of these heads, which ultimately never wound up in the film. But all of these grotesque, ghoulish-looking creatures, and they were always on display on stage.
I got a call from Greg Cannon, who was the makeup designer on Exorcist 3, to come in and deal with Jason Miller's makeup and kind of oversee the prosthetic makeups that were being done on the show. There were a lot of stunt doubles and some other prosthetic effects that were being designed by his shop.
I was brought in through Greg Cannon. He sat me down and said, listen, I'm on this show, it's Exorcist 3, we need some people to go to set. He said, and the little backstory was he had some guys that had been working the set, but I think maybe because the production was a little difficult or they were having a hard time, they walked. So he needs to come up with some new guys to go to set.
The principal had already been wrapped at that point, and I believe the studio wanted Blatty to shoot an ending that was more in line with what we would consider an Exorcist feature.
Mike Smithson was heading up the double for Jason Miller, and Mike was just totally on point with that. Like, all right, you just keep doing that, you know, and we had this nice, healthy, symbiotic thing. And then anytime it was something we needed to, like, have another hand on, we had a third guy.
When I first came in, what I was working on, we were working on different likeness makeups of Jason Miller, Nicole Williamson, and they were basically to be worked into the stunt people who had to portray them. This is way before they did digital makeups and so on, so it actually had to look just like the performers that were stunt people. They were on the ceilings, they were doing all sorts of tearing effects and gags where the skin was coming off. Yeah, this was all during the reshoots.
And it was, you know, maybe a little bit long days, this and that, but, you know, everybody's getting paid by the hour.
Very long hours, yeah. We worked some very long hours, and at the end of the evening, I would actually have to drive back to Greg's shop and pick up new prosthetics for the next day. So regardless of when we wrapped, I had to drive all the way into North Hollywood and go to Greg's shop and pick up new appliances for the next day's work. So my day wasn't even done.
We cobbled this thing together, and we only had 3 weeks prep to shoot a big special effects thing, which should have been 12 weeks. And we only had 3 weeks prep to do the other units, with new actors coming in, not very well rehearsed. And so Mr. Blatty was directing the sequence with the actors and the stuff, you know, in the cell and here and there. And there was this consortium of cameramen and tech advisors and so on and so forth, handling the special effects stuff.
You again. You've interrupted me.
The first day that I went to work at Hollywood Center Studios, which was, I think that was the old Francis Ford Coppola studios, and there was no one around, but the makeup trailer was open, and I just walked in and I'm like, there was someone in there, and he was dressed in his priest frock, and it was Nicole Williamson, and I'm like, wow, cool. So I'm in the right place, and I saw him, and I go, where's the breakfast truck? And he goes, well, I have Heineken and strawberries if you'd like some of those. And I said, well, not today, but I think I know what kind of shoot this is going to be.
Nicole Williamson, what a great guy. Wonderful, charming, kind. Like, I know you're supposed to say these things regardless, but I mean, it's always a plus when it is. Not a lot of people like having this stuff glued on them and everything, but he was great. He didn't make any fuss. I love to hear him speak, you know, he just was great.
You robber of life. You author of pain.
There's a gag that Greg created where Father Morning is basically slammed into the ceiling and he is essentially skinned alive. And Brian Wade and I applied that. I applied most of the facial makeup, and it was some foam latex appliances with gelatin added to give it translucency.
It's intercut with this gravity gag. He gets flung across the room, and in this shot, he's supposed to be on the ceiling, which they actually ratcheted Nicole up to the ceiling, which isn't a comfortable thing. Once they got that shot, then they cut in closer, and his face is against the wall ceiling, and filmed this way, and his face, is supposed to be stuck there, and he pulls away, and some of his skin comes off.
And Nicole was a good sport about it, but there was a point where they actually had a wild ceiling drop down, probably chest level, and we had to glue him into the ceiling where he could actually pull his body away and make it look like his back skin is being peeled off and his face is being peeled off.
It's one of those deals where you do one prosthetic, for the face flesh, and then over the top of that goes another flesh-colored normal one. So that was, for me, a very nice creative challenge. The old, can't look like makeup is on him, but you've got 2 layers of makeup on him.
With blood tubing, and it was a whole rig, and on top of that, the room temperature, it was basically a refrigerated room, so you could see Nicole's breath as he's being, diced, peeled, and sliced and falling off the ceiling. So he's put into place, and Brian and I are on set. And for some reason, there's re-rigging with the lights, and Norman is there, and Norman is overseeing all this, and it's getting incredibly tense. So finally, in this gigantic, big, booming Shakespearean voice, Nicole calls Norman a cunt and tells him to start shooting now. And at that point, you could hear a pin drop. Absolutely hear a pin drop, and we actually started rolling then. The lights were fine.
I have to say, it was one of the most difficult assignments I've ever had in my career, and I've worked with some difficult people, and it wasn't so much just Nickel, it was just the whole thing. And in particular, the special effects unit was very, very difficult, and we needed to have a gimbal where a stunt person would be thrown around inside. Well, Jacek studied this thing. It was a cube, and we worked out, the gimbal where this thing could roll around like that. And he put so many lights and so many cameras on this thing, it wouldn't hardly move. It'd go like a clunk, like clunk. So the stuntman, Craig Baxley, with whom I'd worked before, he said, I got a guy. And so a guy came in, he put an Airy 2 up there, 1 light, and the thing ran around just fine.
They built this room that, it was a full-size room that rotated rather quickly on 2 axes. It's like, imagine a cube like the size of whatever a master bedroom might be, and it would flip on one axis and then on another, rapid succession, just, boom, boom, like that. They bring in the stuntman. I would not have wanted to be any one of those guys. It had all the padding on and everything, but it was like the world's worst bucking bronco.
The whole special effects thing was overdone, I think, to a fairly well. And George C. Scott did show up, and I knew him a little bit from New York days, and but he was not happy to be there. And then he had to be strapped up against this wall, and he had tremendous girth by then, and he needed to be basically his stomach kind of tied in. And it was VistaVision, which would give you a wider thing, but you could also do more effects with it. And you go, why VistaVision? How come we got to do VistaVision? And then I'd explain it to him, Oh, okay. So we'd strap him up against the wall, and you got to get me off of here, It was Nobody was terribly happy there a lot of the time.
Have I helped your unbelief?
Jason, I did Jason's makeup pretty much start to finish as far as his possession makeup goes, and there are a couple of moments where he becomes a normal human being, where he's about to be released from the demon within. Jason was a pro start to finish.
Mike Smithson did a lot of his on-set makeup, but every once in a while I would fill in and also make up Jason Miller, or at least watch his makeup. Things like the little bandage on the nose that looks like a small deal, it becomes a huge deal when you're shooting a film like that because of the continuity, and it has to look the same in every scene, and you're shooting it for several days in a row.
It's not a real elaborate makeup, but there was a lot of modeling, and he had a little Alvacite scar from almost like a lobotomy. He was great in it. Straight jacket. This is actually the screen used, one of the screen used straitjackets that Jason Miller wore. Custom fit for Jason Miller and Charlie Powell.
And that was great because it was Charlie Powell, who was very young at the time. And when he was made up, people would we walked him around Hollywood Center studio, they were like, "Is that Jason?" And then he'd start talking, they're like, "He's got kind of a Texas accent, what happened?" And we're like, "That's Charlie."
When I got there, he was only there probably for another 2 or 3 days, and then that was it for him. We still had 3 more weeks of shooting, which is why they were bringing me in to fill that role of Jason. And I asked him if it would be okay if I just sat in on the scenes, just watch what he did, watched his mannerisms, if I could watch some dailies, if that would be all right, just to see how he handles himself in the cell, which is where most of all my scenes really took place. I was going to be put in prosthetics. Most of my interactions with him were in between setups, just introducing myself, saying, "I'm going to be playing you for the next 3 weeks. Is there anything you want to go over, anything you want to tell me, anything that you were doing as an actor methodically that I would like to continue in the reshoots?" Because like I said, once I was hired, I only got maybe 2 or 3 scenes, maybe 4 scenes with him before I didn't see him anymore. After I saw the film, I thought they did a fantastic job cutting in between the close-ups of Jason and then me for the next 3 weeks. Most people that watch that movie have no idea it's not Jason. The guys at the studio were fantastic. They couldn't have been more helpful with someone who had no idea what they were about to get into. And they explained to me the process that it was going to take every day to put the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of prosthetics on to become Jason Miller.
There were times when Charlie wasn't shot. He would be in full prosthetic makeup, and of course he didn't have to wear the lenses when he was off camera, but he was in full makeup and costume and wig for quite a while, and they would just leave him sit, which was really unfortunate. He wore that makeup quite a bit.
When I got into the set, I'm looking at it from, new kid on the block walking in and seeing all these veteran actors everywhere. And then 2 of the actors go away. Now it's just me and Nicole. And I went from sort of this euphoric high with everything going on to realizing very quickly that there was a sense of, for lack of a better word, tension on the set. And I didn't know why. I wasn't really sure why. It was always a go, 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 go. You need to go, and we need to get this done and to get this done. And there were things that were being rewritten sort of on the fly and on the day.
I think there was a bit of tension. Every day was something different. I mean, we're working with Sub-Zero sets and flame bars and live cobras. Evidently, the first film was cursed, so, they're superstitious people. Who knows? I mean, I don't think there are sequels to Possession curses, but, who knows? There was something different every day.
I had a lot of questions, especially towards the end of the shoot. And it wasn't until maybe the last week, one of my several discussions I had with Ron Colby, they explained to me that Jason's getting credit for this, that my name's not going to appear anywhere. And then when the press packet came out, Mike gave me a call and said, "Let me buy you a drink. Let's talk." And he told me that my name wasn't anywhere to be found. But I understand. They wanted Jason. Again, looking back as someone that did not have a lot of industry knowledge about the way things worked, I could understand why a studio would want to give the appearance that this was the actor. I totally get that. You want to represent that actor in the best light you possibly can, which is the best light for the movie as well. It was an educational experience, and I don't have any regrets whatsoever. It was an incredible learning experience and a very steep learning curve very quickly. To work that long on your first job in LA on a set with that sort of tension.
This time you're going to lose.
It was, I can't really say the right words, but it was a cluster of incompetence as far as I was concerned. And but there wasn't a lot I could do about it. It isn't like, you know, move the snakes over there and, you know, put the lightning over here. It was way beyond that. So somehow it got done, but there were a lot of delays and a lot of frustration.
Bill, now! Shoot now! Kill me now!
The studio wanted that. They wanted the payoff, and they got some of it. Mr. Blatty, he wrote that book, and God love him. I mean, that thing was such a tremendous hit. And but a book is a different animal than a film. And to think, you know, that you can just walk in and start directing a picture, even though you wrote the book, there's a lot of stuff goes on out there with making a picture. So I don't think he was equipped. I like the man, though.
You're not my son.
The guys that write well for film have always written for film. They're not novelists, which doesn't mean a novelist couldn't come in and do a brilliant job. Obviously, it goes without saying. But again, I think that micromanagement that the novelist is allowed is just not what happens for a director. A director has to be willing to go with the flow and love happenstance and make use of it and discover something a character is doing that he didn't imagine and go, that's great. Let's incorporate and expand on that, rather than have such a rigid game plan that, you know, we're doing it this way and this is what I want and this is what I need. There are directors who work that way and do great work. Again, there's no absolutes here. But I'm just saying on the general scheme of things, the flexibility of a director and adaptability and the willing to entertain ideas different from what he may have had himself or thought was the point of the thing is a very much a high point, in my view, of a director's skills. It's that same flexibility that allows them to deal with all the studio and all the other nascent problems that just bug directors to death.
I don't know that I dealt with it very well, frankly. It is immersive, and I walked into this a little blind. We had 3 weeks prep. But before that, you know, usually they bring people in earlier and you sit down and you interview the crew and you interview this guy and that guy and your first AD and so on and so forth. This was like, bang, you know, bring me a warm body.
When The Exorcist 3 came out and I finally got a chance to see it, I was pretty pleasantly surprised. I thought the performances were absolutely amazing. Again, I thought Brad Dourif was a standout.
Exorcist 3, I was pleasantly surprised at how creepy it was. You know, there's some of those moments where, you know, in the hallway where you see that's a big one for me.
You know, I would have liked to have seen a movie that was more reminiscent of the first Exorcist film, but it was a different movie. And today there's a huge fan base for this film. And there are some really incredibly creepy moments in the movie. I mean, you know, the paring shears in the hallway, the granny crawling on the ceiling over George C. Scott as he's completely oblivious to it. A granny crawling on the ceiling above George C. Scott, not paying attention. Great moment. Yeah, there's some great moments in the movie, and I own it. And I think I think it would almost be a stronger film if it didn't have the connection it had to such an amazing, iconic film as Exorcist.
Well, I saw it when it came out, but I haven't seen it since then. So what carries along with me are my experiences on the stage with the different players and what have you. And the film, yeah, okay. They had a problem, no question about it. So it was probably well advised to do what they did, have an additional unit, but we could have used more prep time.
The ground kept shifting, as is often the case. And when you're in disagreement with the studio, as Blatty was, very often, whether you're right or not, the studio will, do themselves a disservice by adopting the attitude that, well, it's the filmmaker's fault, so we're not going to put any money behind this, and we're not going to go out as hard as we could have or we should have, because we don't believe in it. How many films have there been, and there have been a great many, that studios didn't believe in, that became wonderful, fantastic films?
I believe!
So there's a few little moments in there where you go, I did that, or you elicit the reaction from the audience or whoever's sitting next to you watching it, or that's the fun of going down memory lane with these films. You can dissect the shot by shot.
I'm pleased that it's aged so well, and people love the movie, and I can say I had a small part in working on it.
I get the same reaction from people. It's like, oh, that was the creepy one. That one was good. So it's always nice to be a part of it.
We won.